Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Emmerson PLC investor presentation. Throughout this presentation, investors are in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your question, press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. These will be available via your Investor Meet Company dashboard, and you'll be notified once they're ready for your review. I'd also like to remind you this presentation is being recorded. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. And I'd like to hand you over to Graham Clark, CEO, Head and Lock Director, and Charles Vaughan, Corporate Development Director. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and hello everybody on the call. Just before we go into the presentation and go through the slides, just like to play the video that we've had with drone footage showing the site and areas of Morocco where the project will be. So we'll just put that up first. It's a minute and a half, but well worth a watch. Okay, we'll just move on now and go through the slides. We've just got 8 to 9 slides, and really the prompt for this presentation today was the fact that we put our results for 2020 out. I'm not going to focus on the results as such, but really just have a look at what 2020 brought to the project, which was demonstrating through the feasibility study the outstanding economics of the project, and also a lot of the other work that we've done, which have brought us to the position now, getting towards the middle of 2021, where the focus is on getting the funding in place so we can actually hit the target of starting early construction works before the end of the year. And 2020 has been a really sort of fundamental year in terms of the project and taking the project forward. So I've been through this slide before, and a lot of you listening will no doubt have heard me do it, but it is really it is worth just reminding ourselves of the fundamentals of the project. It's based on the increasing need for fertilizers, increasing need for potash, therefore, as one of the key nutrients that all plants need. The market is going to continue to demand more product, and there's obviously then the opportunity for well-located sources of supply, new ones such as ourselves, to come into the market. And we are particularly well located where we are in northern Morocco, the ability to feed the Moroccan market, which is growing, but also the whole of Africa. There's no potash produced in Africa, but there will be a huge and growing market on that continent. As I mentioned, the feasibility study last year demonstrated the outstanding project economics. I'll go through that, just what feeds into that on a slide a bit later on. And we have a team in place. I joined the team in the middle of last year to bring operational experience and also construction experience to the team. And we'll continue to add to that team, and we believe we'll go along the lines as we've done so far, which is to keep the team small, but that is a team of very capable, motivated people. And the intent of the team, the only intent of the team, is to get the funding in place so that we can actually go into construction and ultimately into operations. So just a little bit more detail. Population growth is the thing that drives the demand for fertilizer. So we need to grow more food. By 2050, 60% more food than we're growing today from a reducing area of agricultural land available. The only way to do that is to apply fertilizers to increase yields. And the application of fertilizers has increased over the last 15 to 20 years. But Africa is a classic example where the application rates are probably still less than around 20% of what is actually required to maximize yields from the arable land. So Africa will be a huge increasing demand for fertilizer products generally, and obviously potash in particular. Where we are in Morocco, it's a great location, but Morocco relies on agriculture. It's a large part of their economy. They put a lot of money, the Moroccan government has put a lot of money into developing agriculture. So the demand for potash in the country has increased dramatically over the last 10 years. A lot of that is driven by OCP, the world's largest phosphate producer, who have moved into the production of blended fertilizers, NPKs, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And they're actually importing the very product that we're going to produce into the country. We're looking now 800,000 to 1 million tons per annum of potash imported into Morocco. So obviously our project, all of the product could stay in country and feed that demand. Morocco as a country, it's a great jurisdiction, very stable, very welcoming of foreign investment, and also understanding the mining sector. As I've said, OCP, the largest phosphate miner in the world, obviously means that mining and the benefits of mining to the economy is very much in their minds. So there is a very favorable royalty structure in place, and they are supportive of investment. So there are tax breaks once we get into operations. And I think the understanding of the authorities and the support has come through with the granting of the mining license, and ongoing very positive engagements with all areas of government in country as we take the project forwards. One of the key things we've been looking at is the use of renewable energy, and in Morocco there's a huge amount of both solar and wind energy produced, and we are engaged with one producer already, and there are others that we are in conversation with. So we're very confident that once we get into construction and ultimately into operations, we will be able to power the project 100% from renewable energy sources. So this slide really, this just summarizes what the feasibility study identified. The project is low risk, low capex, and high margins, and it is, it's very simple. And what drives that? And here we just compare the Chemisat project in Morocco to a typical Canadian potash project. But what drives the low capex is the fact that the deposit is only 500 meters below surface. There's no aquifers between the surface and the potash seams, so we can actually access the deposit mining 3.5 kilometer long drifts, so decline roadways from surface down into the deposit. No high cost support required. And we've got an estimated cost of that for around $35 million. Typical potash mines going through aquifers, deep shafts, you're looking at $1 billion just to access the resource. So low cost and very low risk, which is also important as we move forwards. Morocco, as I've said, it's well-established infrastructure in the country. We're very close to the main power distribution network and close to a highway, and you saw that on the video. The area where we showed we'd be mining runs along a main highway which goes down to the coast to a well-established port of Casablanca. So we have very low cost in terms of infrastructure during the development, and then easy access to a port for the product to go wherever it has to go. What we show on here is we use the example just so we can compare to the large incumbent producers, what it would cost for us to ship to one of the main potash markets in Brazil. Because of our closeness to the port, the low royalties, nominal royalties that are in place, we can ship our product from the mine site to Brazil for $24 a ton. If you look at the equivalent in Canada, the royalties alone to the government of Saskatchewan is $25 a ton, and then 1,700 kilometers to a port. So high cost to actually get to the port, and then shipping costs. So we have an $80 a ton advantage over the Canadian producers should we wish to ship to Brazil. But as I've already commented, that's highly unlikely because of the demand in Morocco itself, and also the growing demand on the continent of Africa, which we would obviously have ready access to. Just looking back and reflect a little bit more on 2020 and what was achieved last year. I think the project, from the very start has moved rapidly. There has been a small team, but very focused on making fast progress and delivering to the milestones that we identify. So last year, I suppose the highlight was all the work that fed into the feasibility study, which was completed in June. I joined the company in July, and we've continued to move forward with the socioeconomic study, additional technical work to sit alongside the feasibility study, and then obviously February of this year, getting the mining license, which is obviously a very key step, and the aim we get the environmental permission shortly to follow that. It actually looks like there's a slide dropped off there. So in terms of where we are now, environmental approval is the next big step. And funding is obviously the key thing that we're working on. And the main target is to bring in a strategic partner. And there's a lot of very positive conversations ongoing with regard to that. And then around that, we will build the debt and the remaining equity that we require to get the project funded. And the target is that we get to that position Q3, Q4 this year, so that we're able to commence construction. So there's a lot of work going on, commencing now. We've started work on site with some further site investigation to provide us the detailed data that will feed into the design, and that puts us in a position then to start to talk to potential construction partners and get all of that lined up, ready for having the funding in place by the end of the year and commence early construction works. So just before I finish talking and hand over for questions, just this last slide, and here we put up our values, and really what the way we are going about what we do. It's a very simple sentence: always do the right thing and always do it in the right way. And I think that is really important, and whether that's how we treat our people, respect for the environment, whatever we do, it's very simple. We set out to do that in the right way, and that, I think, is fundamental to the way forwards for the project and the company. So happy now. There's myself here, obviously, Hayden's also here, and Charles, to answer any questions that anybody wishes to put forwards.
Graham, thank you very much indeed for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, do please continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the corner of your screen. But just while the company take a few moments to review those questions submitted already, I'd like to remind you that the recording of the presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via our investor dashboard on the Investor Meet Company platform. I'd also like to remind you that your feedback is important to the company. Immediately after the presentation has ended, you will be redirected for the opportunity to provide feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. Graham, Hayden, Charles, perhaps before we go into some of the live Q&A, we had a number of pre-submitted questions, and perhaps if I could just read some of these out for you, that would be great, just to start off the Q&A session. The first one reads as follows: can you confirm if any of the company directors have spent any time on site in Morocco in the last 12 months?
Well, I can certainly answer for myself. I haven't actually managed to get out to Morocco. I've been with the company nearly 12 months, so I don't think any of the other guys have been able to either. And that's really been influenced by the restrictions brought about by coronavirus. There was a period where I could have travelled shortly after I joined the company, but then with the spread of the virus, I sort of made, probably with hindsight, the wrong decision, thinking that things would improve later in the year and it would be easier to travel with less risk. But as it turned out, things obviously got substantially worse, as everybody is well aware. And since December, the borders have been closed in Morocco for the vast majority of that time, so no travel has been possible. And obviously, it's part of us. And as I've just said, we set out to do things in the right way. Not taking risks and not putting people at risk is important to us. That said, we have a really capable team in Morocco who've managed to take forwards all of the work streams that have helped us make progress. And it's very comfortable to say that we haven't had any delay or impact because we've not been able to travel out to Morocco. The team in country have very capably continued with the work that's needed, and we obviously communicate regularly. And I think it's become now sort of the norm for people to be able to communicate electronically on the various methods that you can do that, and you can keep well in touch with people and make sure things are progressing as they need to.
Fantastic, thank you, Graham. The next question we've got here is, what is Morocco like as a mining jurisdiction?
Well, I think I commented on that, to some extent in the slides. It's, they understand mining and the benefits of mining. With OCP, it's a huge employer in country. So mining they understand. They've been very supportive of us, and but we play our part in that. We engage with all of the authorities. They understand what we're doing. All of the sort of work that we've produced so far has been of a very high standard, particularly the environmental work. So I think they are supportive. They understand the benefits. They're welcoming of foreign investment. There's a lot of large companies invested money in Morocco, and it is it's stable. And it really is a great place for us to be building this project.
That's great, thanks, Graham. Another one we had here pre-submitted, and I can see a few have come in as well during the event. We have touched on it slightly, but is there any progress being made on securing finance for the project? I guess just a little bit of colour on that where you can, I suppose, please.
Yes, there is progress being made. So we're talking to a number of parties who would potentially come in as a strategic investor or partner. So there are parties who are looking just to invest on an equity basis as a cornerstone investor, and there are also a number of parties who are interested in investing with with the offtake of the product being associated with that. And we've made a lot of progress. We've got a lot of positive conversations going on. I can't really obviously divulge that, but I suppose that links to some of the other questions that have been asked. I noticed one that's come in just asking about the various sort of scenarios that we've put forward for the stage development. So I'll maybe just sort of pick that up now. It's certainly the case, without giving too much away, that some of the potential strategics who have an interest in the product are obviously very keen for us to develop the project to the size as identified in the feasibility study, rather than starting with a smaller project with a lower production output. And obviously for us, if we have a potential partner who's interested in the offtake and they want to maximize that, then our focus would obviously be on developing the project to the 735,000 tons a year level as identified in the feasibility study. So there's a lot of conversations going on. In parallel, our debt advisor is working with a number of large banks and export credit agencies, and they've all been in the data room looking at all of the work that we've done and reviewing that and coming back with questions. So that process is well underway as well to put the debt package together ultimately.
That's great. Thanks. Thanks again, Graham. Next question we've got here reads as follows: is the ESIA still on track to be released by June?
We've said, we've said in the first half of the year, and that's we're still, confident that will be the case. There's no red flags appeared, so we expect that to come through.
Fantastic, thank you. And next one reads as follows: at what date are you planning to reach the stage of actually selling mined product? I know there's a number of variables, but
well, the target, and it is fairly aggressive, start early construction works by the end of the year. That obviously is completely dependent on the funding. I mean, that is, funding is the big step. We're doing all of the work. We'll start the detailed design, so we'll be ready to start construction, but obviously we need the funds in the bank to do that. But given that we do start construction at the end of the year, at the moment, we've got a 2-year construction period, which would take us down into the seam, and therefore we'd be bringing ore out towards the end of 2023, early 24, with a view that we would ramp up over the period of 2024 and be in full production by the end of that period. So early 24 is, the target, given that we achieve what we have to achieve this year, which is get the funding in place.
That's great, thank you. Another question we've got here. So I keep seeing ads for Emmerson online. What's the thought process or justification for these?
It was just we've spent a bit of time, and we've done quite a few investor events over the last month or 6 weeks, and we've done that to make sure that we're out there and we're putting the name out there, and we're trying to engage with a wider base of potential investors, and it's simply that we've been out and we've talked a lot, and I've noted that there's been some sort of questions as to why we're out there communicating so much, but you can get caught in you either don't communicate enough or you communicate too much. But we just want to get out. We believe the project is an outstanding project. We believe that it's undervalued, where it sits today, and we want as many people to be aware of Emmerson and have a look at the project as possible. So, that's the rationale behind it.
That's great, makes sense. If we could just ask you now, just perhaps to move on some of the questions that are submitted during the live event there, Graham. If you could just click on that Q&A tab and perhaps just start at the top and just read out where appropriate to do so, those questions you're happy to answer, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so I think I've sort of covered off the first one. I think that was reference to looking at different the stage development, the phase development, and maybe just comment a bit more on that. So I think we are talking to potential strategics who are interested in the product, and therefore the larger scale project is the obvious focus in support of those conversations, which that is the ideal for us to move forward and develop this project. We get a strategic involved who's interested in offtake agreements. Otherwise, we have looked at the stage development, and that I think that is absolutely the right approach for us to have options and optionality. A smaller scale startup might appeal to another investor who may come in and say, I'll give you all of the capital required, but let's do it in stages. And I think we've also identified the huge potential of the project through the expansion into SOP. We're doing the work on SOP, additional salt sales, and then ultimately the potential to actually expand the potash output. So I think all of those things are, for us to be successful and get this funded, we have to be flexible and we have to have options out there, and that's our approach, and we'll continue to take that approach. All right, just let me move down. There's an environmental permit question, which I think I've answered. So I think the question there about the sort of news, and I think I've sort of made a comment about that just now. The fact that we've been out there trying to sort of reach out and get Emmerson out there to a sort of a wider audience. We continue to believe there's value in that, but our main focus at the moment is on speaking to potential strategics and getting the main sort of funding structure in place, and that delivers value for everybody that's invested in the project. So that is our focus. That is the key task this year. And I've got Hayden stood here beside me, so maybe Hayden might just want to add a few words about where we are with the sort of funding and the approach to that.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Look, I think it's as Graham said, it's the core focus of the team right now. We're fully aware that to really unlock the value of this project, we need to get that financing package in place. It is the final piece of the puzzle, and we've been doing a lot of work over the last 12 to 18 months on that, and we're certainly edging closer to a point where we think we can start to unlock the full value of this project. Hopefully we'll deliver that in time for commencing construction by the end of the year.
Thanks, Hayden. There's a question, quite a lot of questions here actually. There's one here sort of quoting from Wikipedia. Somebody's obviously got some time to have a look online at different things. A question here maybe about, whether there's a risk that the Moroccan government could privatise the project, the operation. We don't see, that nobody can ever rule that out, but we see from all of our experience in the country and our advisors in the country and the way that they've behaved historically and continue to behave, that we don't see that as a risk. As I've said, there's a lot of very large companies, car companies and others with substantial investments in Morocco, and they're attracted there because it is stable, and a very good place to invest and get projects up and running. So, it's not something we can 100% rule out, but there's a lot of confidence that we'll be able to get up into construction, then in operations, and operate very well in Morocco. Question here about COVID restrictions. So I've commented, I don't think we've had any delays because of coronavirus up to press. We've just started some site work using local contractors. This is to do sort of shallow site investigation to give us the information to feed into design for foundations and the start of the decline. So we're able to use companies based in Morocco. We're going to do some deeper drilling, but again, we believe that there will be no delays in the contractor getting their equipment to site. So we continue to make actual real physical progress as well as the more paperwork-driven part of the project development. And we're managing to do that. The team in country are more than capable of looking after that work. And as soon as we can travel out there, and we will be we're sort of hopeful that June will, some of the restrictions will lift, and we'll be free to move around and get out there. There's a question here about, have we engaged in a comprehensive roadshow around the banks and analysts to drive share price performance? We're constantly in communication and through our brokers. And yes, the company is, we believe, undervalued. We'll continue. We do what we can to drive that and communicate with people and try and convince people of the compelling story behind the project. But I think the best way for us to actually guarantee that we fully realise the value is for us to continue to make progress, get the environmental approval, work on the funding, and ultimately we tick off those milestones. Then the value of the company will start to come out. Okay, there's a few questions here that I've already covered off.
I think looking through, Graham, you have covered off pretty much all of those points and themes that we have there from investors. And just to remind investors as well that any further questions submitted, the company will be able to review post-event, and we'll publish those responses where appropriate to do so on the Investor Meet Company platform. Graham, perhaps on that basis, I could just ask you just for a few final words before we redirect investors to give you some feedback.
Yes, I mean, I've been with the company now, it's getting on for a year, which seems to have flown by, even though I've not really flown anywhere during that period. But it's a very exciting project. It is, it is very simple. I'm a mining guy. I've got that experience and also construction experience. And the projects, very simply talk about it. It is low risk, low capex for very good reason, and then low operating costs for a very good reason. It is a great project. Very important to me is the team that we have working on it. Small team, very committed, very capable people. and completely focused. And we are questioned about buying shares and other things, and our commitment. But this team is totally committed to developing this project and getting it into construction and then ultimately into operations. And that is our complete focus. And we're very confident that 2021, which is a crucial year to keep the project moving, we are confident we'll get the funding in place and we'll commence construction. And that is our complete focus. We've had a couple of people join the project recently who've come, very experienced people who've come from a very stable employment. They've joined Emmerson because they completely believe in this project, and we'll continue to drive it forwards and get it delivered. So thank you all for listening. Hopefully we've answered some, if not all, your questions. And just thank you for your support. Keep supporting us, and we'll we believe 2021 is going to be a really good year for us.
Graham, that's fantastic. Graham, Hayden, Charles, thank you very much indeed for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close the session, as you'll be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete and will be greatly and is greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of Emmerson PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That now concludes today's session. Thank you very much and good afternoon.